Do you operate a marina, boatyard, or boat repair facility in North Carolina? Are you covered by the state of North Carolina's NCG19 Stormwater General Permit and have been getting bad monitoring results or having other compliance problems? Or have your bad monitoring results, probably due to copper exceedances, landed you in either Tier 1, 2, or 3 status, and you're wondering what you need to do or how to get out of this situation? If so, if this is you, then you've come to the right place. Now, we get a lot of questions from marinas about their responsibilities under NCG19, as well as their stormwater exceedance results and the tiered response process. So we put this video together to help you out with any questions that you may have. So with that, let's dive right in. As we all know, in North Carolina, marinas are more than just boat docks. They are centers for recreation, tourism, and small business, integral parts of the state's coastal and inland waterways. But alongside this vital role comes an environmental responsibility, managing stormwater in a way that protects our waters from pollution. To meet this obligation, marinas that engage in industrial activities such as boat maintenance, fueling, and washing are required to comply with the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality's Stormwater Permitting Program. Specifically, most marinas fall under the General NPDES Stormwater Permit NCG19 usually referred to simply as NCG19. This permit is part of a larger national framework under the Federal Clean Water Act, which requires certain categories of industrial facilities to monitor and, if necessary, reduce pollutants in their stormwater discharges. Marinas are included because of their potential to discharge pollutants like oils, grease, sediment, and most notably, dissolved metals such as copper. One of the most difficult compliance issues under the NCG19 permit is meeting the benchmark for dissolved copper in stormwater. Copper is widely used in anti-fouling paints to prevent the growth of barnacles and algae on boat hulls. While effective in the water, these paints can become a problem on land. When boats are pressure washed, sanded, or repainted, copper-containing particles and residues can wash off into the surrounding pavement, drains, soils, or even directly into the surface waters. Even atmospheric deposition from boat activity or marine aerosols can contribute trace metals to paved surfaces over time. The benchmark for dissolved copper under NCG19 is set at 6 micrograms per liter for discharges to saltwater and 10 micrograms per liter for discharges to freshwater. To put that into perspective, that's 6 parts per billion for saltwater discharges, about the equivalent of just a few drops of ink in a swimming pool, and far, far less than the US drinking water standard for copper. It's an incredibly low threshold, and in many cases, lower than what marinas can achieve using traditional best management practices. It may even be close to or below the natural background concentration in some areas or watersheds. As a result, many marinas, despite taking responsible steps, routinely exceed the copper benchmark in their discharge monitoring reports. These exceedances are not taken lightly and can trigger specific regulatory actions under the NCG19 permit. And that leads us to the tiered response framework. NCG19 includes a tiered response system designed to escalate corrective actions as benchmark exceedances continue over time. This structure is meant to drive continuous improvement in stormwater management, but can present a real burden for marinas, particularly those small or medium-sized marinas. Let's take a look at this tiered response for marinas under NCG19. There are 3 tier levels, and starting from Tier 1, they get progressively stricter with more requirements, including the hardest requirement of them all, which is potentially moving from quarterly monitoring to monthly monitoring, which would pose a considerable burden on most marinas. And know that when you initially have permit coverage, you aren't in any tier. Tiers only occur when exceedances occur, which unfortunately is pretty common. But let's take a look at each tier level, starting with the first level, Tier 1. When a facility exceeds the copper benchmark for the first time during a monitoring period, they enter Tier 1. At this level, the Marina must notify the appropriate state regional office of the exceedance and initiation into Tier 1 response status, and then perform an in-depth and comprehensive evaluation of the potential causes of the exceedance. This involves inspecting existing stormwater control measures, identifying likely sources of copper, and evaluating whether current best management practices, otherwise known as BMPs, are being maintained and operated effectively. This Tier 1 evaluation must be completed and documented within 30 days of receiving the monitoring results. While this tier doesn't require a written corrective action plan submitted to the state, the findings must be retained and available for inspection. If benchmark exceedances continue in the next monitoring period, typically over 2 consecutive sampling events, the Marina escalates from Tier 1 to Tier 2. At this stage, the NCG19 permit requires notification to the regional office as well as a formal corrective action plan. This plan must describe the specific actions the Marina plans to take to reduce copper discharges. This may involve upgrading BMPs, improving maintenance procedures, implementing additional source control strategies, or even considering structural treatment technologies. The Tier 2 corrective action plan must be signed and certified, and implementation timelines must be clearly outlined. As previously mentioned, marinas may also be expected to increase the frequency of monitoring from quarterly to monthly in order to verify whether the new practices are achieving the desired reductions. Continued copper exceedances may lead to Tier 3 status, the most rigorous level of response. Tier 3 requires that same notification to the regional office, as well as a comprehensive evaluation of the entire stormwater management system. This evaluation is typically conducted by a qualified third-party professional and includes an in-depth analysis of pollutant sources, treatment efficiencies, and site-specific constraints. The findings of the Tier 3 evaluation must be used to develop and implement a new or enhanced corrective action plan, often involving capital investment in engineered stormwater controls. Facilities in Tier 3 may also be subject to closer regulatory oversight and enforcement if progress is not demonstrated. And, like Tier 2, you may be required to go from quarterly monitoring to monthly monitoring, which is definitely not a good thing. Speaking of which, if you get put on monthly monitoring, is there any way under NCG19 to get back to quarterly monitoring? The answer is yes. It can be done by obtaining 3 stormwater samples in a row that are under the applicable benchmark value. In other words, getting 3 passing samples in a row can help you reduce your tier level and revert to quarterly monitoring if you are required to go to monthly monitoring. So what are some things that marinas can do to manage copper in their stormwater runoff, especially given the extremely tight benchmark and the high likelihood of exceedances? Well, here are several best management practices, or BMPs, that we've seen to be effective in reducing metal pollutant discharge at marina operations. First, routine sweeping of paved surfaces, particularly around maintenance and boat repair areas, can significantly reduce the amount of copper-laden dust and debris that might otherwise wash into storm drains. Next, using drop cloths and tarps are probably one of your primary best BMPs when considering copper or other metal contamination and runoff. When working on boats outdoors, drop cloths or tarps beneath the work area can capture paint chips, dust, and drips. These materials should be cleaned up and replaced regularly, as well as the tarps themselves. Although usually for larger marina facilities, conducting boat sanding, scraping, and painting activities under roofs or temporary shelters provides rain from washing pollutants off the work area. Portable containment units can also help isolate contaminants. Installing filtration socks in or around storm drain inlets or in areas of stormwater flow can be used to trap particles and debris before it enters the stormwater system. Maintenance of these devices is key to long-term effectiveness, but they can be very effective at removing sediments in stormwater, and there are also filter socks that can specifically target trace metals and reduce them in your runoff. If you have copper or other trace metal exceedances, you really should look into these. Implementing a clear spill prevention plan, storing chemicals and paints in covered, labeled containers, training staff on spill response protocols will all help to reduce the risk of pollutants reaching stormwater. And as previously mentioned, where feasible, marinas can install filtration systems designed to target metals. These include media filters using activated carbon, proprietary cartridge systems, or even vegetated swales and biofilters. These technologies can all offer meaningful copper reduction, especially for facilities approaching Tier 2 or Tier 3 status, although they may require additional space, expense, equipment, and be costly. Lastly, ensuring that marina staff are trained on BMPs, inspection procedures, correct stormwater sampling techniques, and overall stormwater permit compliance obligations is critical. A well-informed team can prevent many small issues from becoming larger compliance problems. A lack of training and understanding on the part of marina staff is often one of the biggest problems we see when helping a marina in North Carolina with their exceedance or tiered response challenges. Meeting the copper benchmark under North Carolina's NCG19 permit is probably going to be one of the toughest stormwater challenges facing marinas today. The benchmark is low, the tiered response structure is strict, and the cost of non-compliance can be significant. And trust me, you're not alone in North Carolina. Marinas all over the United States face this exact same problem. But with a clear understanding of the permit requirements, a commitment to ongoing BMP implementation, and a proactive approach to site management, marinas can reduce their regulatory risk and contribute to cleaner waterways across the state. Stormwater management isn't just a box to check. It's a key part of environmental stewardship. And for marinas in North Carolina, that stewardship starts with knowing your permit, monitoring your discharge, and continuously improving your practices. If we here at RMA can be of any help to you or your marina in North Carolina, or anywhere else for that matter, with any aspect of your stormwater discharge permit compliance program or any other environmental matter, please give us a call or schedule a time to chat. We'd love to hear from you, and we're here to help you succeed.